Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Breaking Free Show, and my name is Marilyn Shannon, and I'm so happy to be here with you today from Florida still. I'm still in Florida. It's one day, maybe I'll be home in North Raleigh, but right now I am in Florida with my mother and doing just fine. Thank God. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. So it's a good day in the neighborhood. I want to get started with our show. Before we do, I just want to remind all of you to please feel free anytime you want to call in. You can do that at 919-518-9773 if you have access to a telephone. You can also join us on Skype, and that would be voice, not video. So you can come in at computers, then the number 2K voice. And also, we have a live chat that you can join us in as well. Just put your name, nickname, whatever you like there, and you can ask questions, comment, whatever strikes your fancy in the moment. Love to have you in there as well. So I want to say hi to Amnon, our producer. Hey, Amnon.
Hello, Marilyn.
How are you?
I'm just fine.
This is
We're
the longest we've been apart, Amnon. Oh my gosh, we're usually
That's
like right
okay. It's
across
not the end of the world. You're going to be here before long.
before long. Uh-huh. Everybody just keep your masks on so I can come home. That would be great because my mother is going to be 95 in June.
Knock on
And
wood.
knock on wood, she's doing great and she's been protected. So thank God. Just keep your masks on so I can come home soon. Okay. All right. So let's get on with our show. So it is my pleasure to welcome Allison Mathews, Dr. Allison Mathews, to our Breaking Free stage. Hey, Allison, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Tell everybody who Allison is.
Well, so many things. So I am an entrepreneur and researcher. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, but I've lived in North Carolina for the past 13 years. So my background is I'm a sociologist by training, and I'm really interested in helping community members be more involved in clinical research, in the decision making process, and trying to educate people about the most up-to-date research and getting access to healthcare resources. So I've done a lot around HIV, clinical trials, HIV testing, HIV medication, and now I'm expanding to other health conditions like Alzheimer's disease and heart heart disease as well.
I love this idea about helping to educate and empower a community because they are their best advocates. But before we get into that, what from your past helped to encourage you or inspire you to do this? Is there
I think
anything
that,
in your past?
yeah, a lot of people ask me why do I do work around HIV, and honestly, when I was growing up, I didn't know a lot of people living with HIV, but I think my my interest really came from uh, being in a family that I saw family members who struggled with access to healthcare, access to medication, who had who had diabetes and had their limbs amputated, and just really kind of seeing this disparity in access to healthcare really got me interested in wanting to do more. And then when I found out about the stigma around HIV and how that really played into um, access to healthcare, for me as a sociologist, I cared about the inequality part and how um, health in general, and in particularly HIV, is really just a symptom of a larger issue of inequality. So I really care about social justice.
Mhm.
I experienced a lot of, even though I grew up in the 90s and 2000s, I did experience quite a bit of racism. You would think in that time that I wouldn't have, but I was, even at my age, I was like, this is a lot to be experiencing all of this racism and direct discrimination. And so I was like, I have to do something about it.
Mhm.
So healthcare was the way for me to do it.
So when you talk about the stigma around HIV, let's start with that. What
Mhm.
is what is the stigma? that you are trying to get over, get past, or
Yeah, a lot of people experience, well, one, they don't want people to know they have HIV. And a big part of that, I think, is tied to this idea of how people get HIV. That, people, it's already taboo to talk about sexual behavior and to talk about drug use and these kinds of, and homelessness and unemployment. And so those are the things that make you vulnerable to HIV. And and people who get that disease, get stigmatized because of that, because of all these other issues. And so a big part of the conversation. So what really resonated with me, and I have to tell you this story, what really got me into this was, um, I was doing a forum with some community members, and they were talking about how when HIV first started, and mind you, I'm like the age of HIV, so I've never known a world without HIV. Um, I was born in 1985 when it became like a big issue. And so they were telling me about in the early days when it started how they had a separate entrance for people living with HIV or people who needed to get tested. They had a separate entrance for them in the health department. And it made them feel like second class citizens. And it's interesting to see now because during coronavirus they have a separate entrance. We're afraid of this kind of infectiousness, but it can also reinforce stigma, this idea of being treated differently just because you have or potentially have a disease.
yeah, I doing a opioid summit, helping to
Mhm.
facilitate an opioid summit in October. Hopefully, it'll be face to face. If not, it'll be virtually. And one of our main things is getting past the stigma, because the stigma is this brick wall that if you
Mhm.
don't get past, people don't get educated. Then people who are impacted by it, a family member, a teacher, a counselor, a coach, whoever, they don't know enough. They don't get enough information. So we really can't help, you know, we may not eliminate it, but we certainly can help save a life. Right. So it's similar to kind of what you're talking about. The more you educate someone, the more help people can have. And, it's just like COVID. The more information we get, the more we can help each other.
Right. And
Right.
empowering people to, I think the stigma also keeps people from accessing treatment. There a lot of people don't even go to the doctor, even if they think they've been exposed to HIV or coronavirus, for example. They don't go because they're afraid of someone seeing them at the clinic. They're afraid of someone seeing the bottle. If say they get a prescription for treatment, they're afraid that someone in their household is going to find out because they're taking the medication, or that they're going to be kicked out of their family or rejected in some way, or denied a job or denied health insurance. And many of those things have happened. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, we have to educate people and also realize that there's a lot of advancements that have been made in the treatment. People can take a pill a day now to prevent HIV. Like, I mean, that's huge. And actually, there was something in the news that came out recently from a clinical trial that I worked with a lot of people, to do community engagement around this clinical trial for long acting injectable, which is, if you think about birth control, you have the pill and then you also have a shot, right? So now they've developed a shot for HIV that lasts for up to 2 months to protect people from getting HIV. So it's the we've advanced a lot to the point where two people are cured of HIV. We have these medications that can keep people from getting it. People who have HIV won't pass it on to their partners and that kind of thing. But we have to educate people so that they know, and hopefully that will help with the stigma.
So, what are the numbers? Uh, I have not seen much about HIV lately.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because I'm pretty focused on COVID, but before that, I hadn't seen much about HIV in a long time. So,
Yeah.
why is that? And what do the numbers look like?
Well, so I think part of the reason why you don't see a lot in the news is maybe because it's been around for so long and people are like, okay, it's not really new information. But there actually has been quite a bit of new information and new technology, new discoveries. The rates have kind of plateaued where um, they they are not necessarily going down. The infection rates are not going down. You would think at this point that they would be really low, but they're actually have stayed pretty steady over the past 10 years. Um, but death rates have gone down, which is good, right? So people are not necessarily dying from it, but they are still getting HIV. So, and it's mostly affecting um, African American men and African American women and Latino men and women. Um,
Interesting. Okay, I think Allison's a little frozen, but that's very interesting. So I want to know more when she comes back. Amnon, you're still here, right? Or is it me that's frozen? Amnon, is it me?
Hello.
Okay. I couldn't tell if it was me that froze or
Yeah, my
you.
dropped for some reason.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. Amnon, was it me that froze or was it Allison? I don't know. Okay. I don't know where he is, but we're on, right? Okay. So you were saying that it's still African American, it's women, it's men, it's Latinos. Is that
Yeah.
correct? So how are you educating them?
Well, so the I guess what sets me and my team apart is the fact that we use crowdsourcing contests.
Mhm.
So this idea that you get community members to submit branding like a hashtag or a tagline or a video that reflects what they want to see in promoting HIV testing, promoting finding a cure for HIV. So we have these contests where they submit their creative ideas like videos, songs, poetry, um, drawings, paintings, and then we have a panel of judges who judge those submissions, and then we celebrate them online, and we do community engagement events. I've done a hip hop concert uh, where we talk about conspiracy theories around HIV. We've done fashion shows and just different ways to like really kind of get the community involved and learning more about. And so it can be depressing to talk about HIV, but if you make it fun and interactive and then it people are more willing to be a part of the conversation and want to learn more.
And they have ownership of the education, right?
Yeah, because it's their ideas. They see their artwork up on you know, on the big screen, or they see their poetry. I had actually a community member who came up with a theme song for HIV cure, and then we used that and then like broadcast it on social media and like it's those kinds of creative ways to get involved where you feel like, okay, maybe I don't know a lot about the science, or maybe I can't um, you know, I can't give someone a prescription to medication, but I can come up with a song. I can go to this event and volunteer and, be involved that way. And I can start to advocate with the legislatures and, just kind of learning different ways to be involved, I think has really mobilized people to want to learn more
Mhm.
and, um, it's kind of grown beyond me now at this point, which is awesome.
Has it? So tell us how. How has it grown beyond you?
Well, so we have found, so a friend of mine, Kimberly Knight, and I have co-founded HIV Cure Research Day, which is December 14th. So this actually was the 5th year that we celebrated. No, it's this coming year is the 5th year that we will celebrate HIV Cure Research Day, and it's been recognized by Governor Roy Cooper for the past 4 years. And so in that sense, we've gotten the attention of state government to raise awareness about HIV clinical trials. We've gotten community members to host their own events. We do a lot on social media, like during the contests. And so now we're replicating those contests, in Baltimore, in DC. We've done some contests in South Africa and in China. And so that, this way of engaging people online and in person as I guess a scalable idea, in the sense that you can really use these contests as a groundwork to get people involved, and then you kind of give them tips on how to mobilize in their communities.
So how many people are involved? Like how many people in these communities?
So I can give you over the past. So I started this work in 2015, and since over the past 4.5 years, we've had maybe about 1,500 people come to in-person events. In the contest, we've had about 400 participants. And then online, we've had about 450,000 people who have, kind of seen our posts, engaged with them, shared content, all of that.
Allison, it seems so like duh to me that we wouldn't be engaging a community, that we
Yeah.
wouldn't be connecting. It seems so obvious. And your numbers are, pretty 400,000, that's huge for people to
Well,
stay engaged.
yeah. Well, and you would think you would think, oh, yes, of course, but traditionally it has not happened that way. And I'm now that I've expanded beyond HIV, and we're talking about Alzheimer's and diabetes and other kind of clinical trials, I realize how much it has not been done. Because
Are
now,
you finding that people they know about it, they don't know about it, they what is the real thing that you're finding? The
well,
astonishing thing.
I think that people know about diseases, and I think that there have been organizations, community-based organizations, that have done a lot of work. But I think there's a disconnect between what's happening in the community around these diseases and what's happening in science. And so the clinical investigators who are doing the clinical trials oftentimes are completely disconnected from the community. They don't know what's going on, what the organizations are, who these people are. And a big part of the reason also why I started this work was because racial ethnic minorities are underrepresented in clinical research. So most of the medications that are designed with white men and women's bodies and their experiences. And so, like for example, the long-acting injectable, that injectable may not, it has shown that it's been effective for multiple different populations, which is great. But if they did not include African Americans and Hispanic people and kind of a diversity of people, we wouldn't know if they would be able to access this drug, if they would, do they need transportation to get to the clinic to access this drug? Or like, it's important to have diversity of people and diversity of experiences, so that even if you develop a drug, what if it doesn't work in the marketplace because you develop something that people can't access and they don't know how to use?
Wow.
So
That's
that's why I guess the disconnect between the researchers and the community, that's what makes it unique,
right.
is bridging that gap.
Right. And I also, based on my experience in the opioid world, and now I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a count. I mean, I'm a coach. I'm
Right.
a life coach, and my next book is about people impacted by opioid addiction, because I'm fascinated by people and their stories. But one
Hmm.
thing that I have found is that the people who are doing most of the talking to each other is the medical community, is the legal community, is the political
Hmm.
community. They're talking amongst themselves.
Right.
They're not talking to the people. And that I
Yes.
find to be very frustrating. That's why our summit is called the People's Opioid Summit, because we
Hmm.
want to invite the people, we want to armor the people and not
Yeah.
talk to the same people over and over and over again, that it's like talking over the people's heads.
Well, and so that, and the people, I guess, quote unquote, have expertise that's valued, right? Like your lived experience
Right.
is just as valuable a contribution to scientific advancement as knowing about the immune system. So I think that's important. And
Yeah.
and also some of the like community based ideas actually have gotten me to the next phase of my why I'm an entrepreneur, is the community based ideas and kind of engaging with community members. We learned that how difficult it was, like the process to get access to medication. So like there's state government programs that and federal government programs that pay for medications because HIV medication is expensive. So, in the process of engaging with community members, I met a young man who was living with HIV and had not been on medication for the past 2 years. He didn't know who to go to. He didn't have transportation to get to the clinics. Um, he he didn't know what paperwork he needed to be able to get access to medication that's free. And so we had to walk him through that process, and we realized, wait, this is really hard. Like you have to turn in proof of income, proof of residency. You have to go to the clinic and reapply for these things every 6 months. And then we realized that the clinics are also overburdened with this work because they have to follow up with each. They have like on average 600 to 800 patients that they have to follow up with every 6 months to reapply for these programs, and they're doing it by hand.
Oh my gosh.
So
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, whoa.
Okay, so you found a business
Mhm.
in there to create a problem solve something.
Yeah, so we developed Digital Links, which is this app that pre-screens people's eligibility for programs that pay for their medications. And then we fill out the app. We have them answer short demographic questions. They fill out the application. Our program fills out the application, sends it to the clinic so that they don't have to come in person and the clinic doesn't have to fill it out by hand. And then it automatically sends it to the state Department of Health and Human Services.
And then how do you get paid for that?
The clinic and healthcare systems would have to pay licensing to access the software because it's also kind of like a client management software.
Uh-huh. Well, you see, now I think that's brilliant. And
Thank
there's no
you.
reason you're very welcome. There is no reason you shouldn't make a little money for your efforts and at the same time help. I mean, it's blossoming out of a need,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I mean, there's no reason that somebody couldn't create something that blossoms out of a need and get paid for it.
Right. I mean, it happens all the time. It's just Why not me? Why not us?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's fabulous. So, there's a woman, and I can't recall what her name is, and I know she lived in Durham, I thought, and she was like a woman, female entrepreneur in like 2000 something or something. And she saw that there was a disparity in the medical community, and she started satellite medical clinics,
Hmm.
different like corporations or businesses or locations. Do you know who she is? I
I
can't recall what
don't.
her name is. She was really interesting. If I can think of who it is, I'll let you know. She was really fascinating. So how is that working? That business.
Well, um, it's we are completely self-funded, so that's been interesting.
How does that
um,
work?
well, so we started off. So I think it's also important to note that because we are so my business partners and I are all African American, kind of we're all around the same age range in our mid 30s, and we don't have access to capital. We don't have access to family money, and so what we've had to do is really use our expertise in doing HIV work, and using our networks in that way. Um,
To
so
build the technology, to
to build the
distribute
tech,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
so we were lucky enough to meet a developer, Charles Campbell, who is a Tar Heel.
Mhm.
And so he was like, he believed in the mission and wanted to work with us, and so we kind of paid him along the way
So,
as
okay,
we
so this is
raised money.
I want you to this is really brilliant, and I want us to stop and focus on this for a minute, because people, our audience can be from all over the world, right?
Hmm.
And they're at all walks of life. And one of the missions of the Breaking Free show is to say, here's a tool, a strategy, a technique, a philosophy, a business, a story, a person, a whatever, that here it is. You can
Right.
do it too. You can feel it too. It's okay. You're not alone. Here's an idea. It may not be your idea. It may be very different than your idea, but oh, you have an idea? Oh,
Hmm.
see this person over here? They had an idea and they did it. So here, you can do it too. So here's the thing that's very important is you have to look at the pattern in what you created with having an idea. When you don't have the capital, maybe you just have an idea, you don't have the technology, you don't have the, it doesn't matter, whatever piece you have, there are pieces you don't have, right?
Right.
You go look for those people,
Hmm.
and you come together in a community,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And people are very willing to help, aren't they?
Oh, yes. I mean, we have been so blessed in the sense that because of the mission of our work, they want to help with any resources that we need, right? So we actually got accepted to a venture mentoring service that's a free service. So we were paired with three entrepreneurs who have grown their own businesses in their own right. So they've been our mentors. I have grant writing experience, so we got a grant through NC IDEA to help launch our business. We worked with the Innovate Durham program, which is a free program that pairs you with a government entity. So we worked with the Durham County Health Department, and they gave us feedback and kind of pilot tested the Digital Links platform. We worked with researchers at UNC and other international nonprofits just through my networks that I've built out as a researcher. And they've helped connect us to resources and write us into their grants. And now working at Wake Forest, I've been able to kind of leverage my affiliation to pilot test digital links with the Wake Forest Infectious Disease Clinic, which is a huge win for us. But the money part has always been we've gone out on faith. Over the past 3 years, we've raised about $75,000, which is, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot, especially for web development. Um, but we've made it stretch and we've made it work. And so anybody who's interested, we are taking investment
Okay, well,
because
this is a good
try to
time.
get to the next level.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
You can do that. Talk about it. Talk
Well,
about, yeah.
so yeah, the money that we're trying to raise right now is to help cover the. So we built out. We actually redesigned the site so that it's more user friendly, especially for people who are living with HIV. A lot of times they have cognition issues and the memory challenges, and so we designed it with that in mind to make it very user friendly for them. And so we've redesigned the site, but now we have to kind of recode sites so that it's matches all the new screens. So we need money to pay for that, and also to pilot test with the 800 patients in the infectious disease clinic will cost some money. Because as we pilot test, you learn new things, you kind of work through the glitches, and then you have to revise. So all of that takes time and money.
And you have to keep, I mean, things change. So you have to keep
Yes.
tweaking it. The technology gets outdated
Well,
before it's even dated.
yeah. Well, that and now that coronavirus, the pandemic has hit, we actually want to expand the platform so that it allows people who are uninsured to be able to access coverage for their coronavirus treatments and the coronavirus kind of testing. Because on the average, I think the test is about $150 per person, and then the treatment average is about 1,000 per person. So imagine if you're uninsured and you get coronavirus. Many of them are not going to the medical providers because they're afraid it won't get covered. But and so the federal government has said, yes, we will pay for it, but it's going to be the same process as it was for HIV, where you have to turn in this paperwork and you have to, turn in these eligibility documents. And it, so our platform makes it easier for people to be able to do that.
And you do it in multiple languages?
That would be great. We don't have that yet. Definitely want to do the Spanish language, especially because out here in Winston-Salem, there's a lot of a large Spanish speaking population, and the access to healthcare is really limited because, that's something that I actually work on with my job, just trying to troubleshoot and think through how can the hospital provide Spanish language services. It's a challenge. I would love to do that though. So if anybody's interested in helping, we would love to take
Mhm.
that on.
Mhm.
Let me jump
Yeah,
in here a second.
it,
Marilyn, are you reading the chat?
no, I did just a minute ago. There was nothing there. Is there something there?
If you see that there's nothing there, then you're not reading the chat.
Oh,
Try and
oh,
refresh your page.
okay, about contacting. Okay, this is Margot.
Yeah.
I know you will tell us how to contact her after the show. Nope, I'm going to tell you right now. Go ahead, tell everybody how to
So
contact you.
you can so Digital Links is digitallincs.com. So the website is up now, digitallinks.com. And so they can email me at info@digitallinks.com. We're also on Instagram, Digital Links, but it's got two L's for on Instagram. So
Good. Thank you, Amnon. So how are you, there's a lot to talk about here.
mhm.
How do you use crowdsourcing?
Oh, well, so crowdsourcing, and even with we use crowdsourcing even with the Digital Links app. So crowdsourcing, it's a methodology where you start off with a problem. So the problem, say, is we want to know how to raise awareness about HIV testing, or let's do coronavirus.
Okay.
We want to raise awareness about coronavirus testing. And so, what would you say to your friend or family member to encourage them to get tested for coronavirus? So that would be the question or the problem. And then we would um, pose it to the public. And then the public would, you would have it on a website, or they could submit it via social media or something like that. Um, and so then they would submit like 1 or 2 sentences on what they think would be the best way to encourage their friend or family member. And if they had a hashtag to go along with that, so it'd be like um, Corona Free Society, you know, hashtag Corona Free Society, get tested, know your status, or something like that. So people will submit their ideas, and then we have a panel of judges that we pull together who have expertise in branding, who have expertise in coronavirus and in public health, and they can judge. They'll judge the submissions, and then whoever gets the highest votes, we select a first, second, and third place winner. And oftentimes the prizes are like $150 in gift cards or $250 in gift cards or something like that. And then we celebrate those ideas online. And, you know, thank you for your submissions. These were amazing submissions and all of that. And
Mhm.
then we use those ideas. We may work with the person who won, if they want to turn that into a whole campaign that raises awareness about coronavirus and getting tested. And so they would work with a professional marketing team to turn that campaign into something that's a big deal, right? For the Wake Forest or for UNC. The other way that we've used that, I've used that model for digital links by actually getting uh, their ideas for the logo for the digital links platform. So our logo for digital links is a crowdsourced logo. Um, we've done it for,
But you are something else, aren't you?
thank you.
You are something else. You are on a mission, aren't you?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love this work. It
You
makes me
are.
happy. It makes me feel like I'm doing something good in the community.
Mhm.
And I feel like people in the community appreciate someone even bothering to ask them, rather than just us going out and telling people this is what you need to do.
You know, that's interesting because as I mentioned a little bit ago, I'm writing a series of books and then I'll show it to us in a minute, but and I my books are all interviews. And people will
Hmm.
often say to me, "How'd you get so many men to talk to you?" Well, you know what? Men really like the idea that I showed an interest,
Yeah.
and it was the same thing with people impacted by opioid addiction or my next one, after opioid addiction, Black fathers.
Mm.
And I have interviewed a whole bunch of, Black daddies
About
and
what? Just being involved
just
with their
about being
children?
yes.
Hmm.
Yes, and I actually got my chapter titles. It's hard to figure out sometimes what you're gonna call a chapter in a book. You call it by the person's name. I mean, you kinda get a little funky with it. Well, in the Black Fathers book, I decided to use a phrase from what one of the fathers said, because
Hmm.
one of the men that I interviewed, when I asked him how he knew so much about his son, he said to me, "I'm in his business." And that was just so perfect. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
that's how I decided I'm going to identify each of the chapters by a phrase from what one of the fathers said. But people are very willing, more than willing, anxious, happy, in love with the fact that you ask them a question and you care.
Yes. And they're actually more willing to do more if we take the time to ask them first, right? So if you I think this resonates with the clinical trial stuff. There's been a long history of mistrust and abuse, medical abuse in African American communities and Latino communities and American Indian communities. But it's not that people aren't willing to participate. They just want to be considered in the process of designing this trial. They want to be asked. They want to be involved. And if they're not involved, if they just find out after the fact, oh, you designed this study and it has no, like you didn't even bother to ask us, then they get shut down. And I think that's the same thing with anything, right? Like I would be mad if somebody bought a house for me and didn't ask me, like, or whatever the thing is. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, people should be asked without a
Hmm.
question. So you also mentioned early on that you're going to be doing work in other communities. Did you mention Alzheimer's?
Yes.
So what's
So
that look like?
So I work in the Maya Angelou Center for Health Equity at Wake Forest, and our center director, Goldie Bird, Dr. Goldie Bird, is a biologist and geneticist, and she has done a lot of work around Alzheimer's disease, particularly in African American communities and
How does
African
it look
American
different?
families.
How does it look
Well,
different?
so um, we have a higher death rate. I want to say it's the fifth leading cause of death for African Americans. And it's the sixth leading cause of death for Americans in general. But for African Americans, we have a higher death rate. And she's done some work to find some genetic markers that actually put make African Americans at a higher risk for it. And then also, like diabetes is a big risk factor for Alzheimer's. So I'm learning all of this. I didn't know any of this before I started this job. But so what we did and are doing in the process of doing is engaging with uh, African American pastors and faith leaders and their congregations to educate them about Alzheimer's, educate them about diabetes and healthy eating, healthy activity. And ironically, this network, we call it the Triad Pastoral Network, and it has become even more important during the pandemic because now we've been able to engage with these pastors by every other week. We've been able to distribute masks for them, like face masks. We've been able to help them kind of get access to CARES Act stimulus funds and educate them about coronavirus and actually on Thursday we are doing a national day of prayer where we have Shirley Caesar is going to be a featured speaker, and we have bishops, and I mean actually becoming a national effort within the last 2 months, which has been amazing.
Well, it
But
just goes to show you that the interest is there. If it can grow that quick,
yeah,
become I mean, people are listening, and it's what's
definitely.
necessary. If something like that could take off so quickly, I mean, you start it locally, or your intention is to be local, but other people want it too. I mean, that's amazing.
And then you would be surprised. I'm surprised. I think that nobody has done it before.
I know. But listen, when I sit back and this opioid thing that we're doing, and when my marketing team came up with the name, the people, when I was just saying, I just want to talk to people. I don't think
Hmm.
people are talking to people. Every summit, every conference it's the same people.
Hmm.
Where are the people? And so the marketing guy looked at me and said, well, let's call it the People's Opioid Summit. And we all got the chills
Yeah.
because we knew what that meant to be able to educate, just like what you're talking about again, to
Hmm.
educate those people, to ask them questions like, what do you need? I mean, who's going to save a life?
Yeah.
It's going to be the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the teacher
Right.
who doesn't know anything.
Well, I think also it's been a traditional model in medicine that we've moved away from the community-based medicine, and it's become more of the scientific expert who understands the biology. But and so that in that process, it removed the people component, right? The humanity, the social component of medicine. And so now I think we're going back to that.
So do you think that is that the reason or a piece of the reason? There's nothing that's the reason. A piece of the reason that there is skepticism
Mhm.
from people about, is this real?
About
And do I really
coronavirus?
Yeah, and do I really need to wear a mask, or, is it, I mean, how come, I've seen this very often, and maybe it's just some things that I've seen, but, occasionally I'll see people say, well, if there's so many homeless people that are infected or getting it, why are they not just sick on the street?
Oh, I've never heard that before.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it
That's
on
interesting.
Facebook, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, so
Probably because they're down here.
why is there this distance? Is there a distance
Mhm.
between the reality of something because people aren't being spoken to directly?
Well, I guess I would say there's a pattern of myths that always emerge for any health issue. HIV has myths also that I hear people talk about. Um, Magic Johnson being cured of HIV, and which is not true, by the way. It's not true, y'all. Um, and thinking that you can be cured by um, some herbal remedies or something like that. I think a lot of times it is founded in a grain of truth that then gets morphed into other things. And in our current political climate, we also have people with very large platforms who are disseminating misinformation, or who are very quick to the first thing that they hear, they're like, "Oh, well, here's the thing. This is the thing that y'all need to know." And when we're in a time of panic and in pandemic, right? And so any bit of information that we have, we have to we kind of take it as truth until it becomes not true. And I think that there's also this history of a lack of education in our communities, especially around science, um, that I think has perpetuated these ideas of like, well, it's not that serious, or we don't really, we don't trust scientists. Like people just in general don't trust
Right,
science.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. We're seeing that a lot, aren't we?
Mhm.
We're seeing that a lot. We're seeing that a lot. Okay, so Amnon, you have my books there? Let's see. All right. So here they are. In just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of men. In just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of twins, millennials, and people impacted by opioid addiction. And then now I'm going to be doing, in just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of Black fathers. And
Hmm.
and people are amazing. And when you talk to them eye to eye, face to face, with passion, compassion, and love in your heart, people will talk and people will be supportive. And I think, Allison, everything that you're saying, you are such an amazing woman.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to have you on the show because you're walking the walk and you're talking the talk.
I
You're out there.
appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're doing the work, and it's noticeable, so it's great. I know you did a TED Talk,
Yes.
and that was all about a lot of this, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. All about the idea of HIV Cure Research Day as a way to mobilize community members and address this misinformation and these myths, and get increased representation of people in clinical research so that we
Mhm.
can kind of create more equity
Right,
and fight stigma.
right, right. Well, I'm excited about particularly Alzheimer's stuff too. I think
Hmm.
that's so important because there's so much about that. I mean, not just the Black African American communities, or there's a lot we all don't know.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
I mean, every time my mother forgets something, I'm worried.
Well, and I think a lot of people take it for granted, thinking that Alzheimer's is something that people just get, and you actually don't have to have. I mean, Alzheimer's is a disease that happens because of probably 30 or 40 years of lived experience prior to the disease. So,
Meaning
live a
what?
li-
What do you mean? What do you mean?
live a healthy lifestyle, exercise, eat healthy, do brain activities. Make sure that you take care of yourselves now so you can prevent yourself from getting Alzheimer's in the future. It doesn't you don't have to have Alzheimer's. And I think that's, if anything, that's the most important message, is just that healthy living, healthy lifestyle.
So you don't have to have Alzheimer's.
No.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, it's not inevitable. We just assume that as people get older, they'll lose their memory, and no, it's actually a degenerative disease where your brain is like slowly dying, and
Mhm.
that doesn't have to happen, right? Like, that's not a normal part of aging.
Now dementia is different.
Dementia is a generic term. So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. There are other types of dementia.
That are I mean, I mean, is it different though, some of the other forms? I mean, like you say, Alzheimer's, you don't have to
Yeah.
have it, but what about
They're all pretty
they're all the
preventable.
same?
So, yeah, so dementia, so there's vascular dementia. I had an uncle who had vascular dementia because he smoked a lot. So that's preventable, and that's a kind of constraining of your veins that limits oxygen to your brain. You have dementia. You can also present dementia like symptoms from being over medicated.
Yes,
So, yeah, so
yes,
if, and sometimes people can reverse their dementia symptoms by reducing their medications.
yes.
So just make sure that you talk to your doctors about that. If anybody in your family is experiencing dementia, first see about the medication, because that oftentimes is a big part of it. And people
Yeah,
who have
right.
experienced concussions, like
Urinary tract infections will cause it,
yeah,
right?
and yeah, and then people who've experienced concussions from like sports can get dementia, early onset dementia.
I'm glad
That's
I didn't
kind
do
of,
much when I was growing up. I'm
I
glad I didn't bang
didn't
this head of mine.
either. Yeah, I was more of like I was in theater and stuff. So
Uh-huh. No wonder with your social justice work,
yeah,
the arts are so important.
it really is.
It really
Yeah,
yeah.
my family is like, my mom is a classically trained pianist, and so is my brother. And my dad sings, and I sing. So that
Mhm.
music and the arts have always been a huge part of my work.
Well, it's great, when you think about kind of bringing people together and expression, the art. I mean, what better way than in art, for
Hmm.
people to express their God-given talent that maybe they've not paid for to do. It's just something that comes natural to them and something that they
Right.
enjoy to express something, which is, the way it should be, really. Okay, so also just regroup a second. So HIV, Alzheimer's, uh, diabetes, which is huge in the Latino community as well,
Hmm.
right? I mean, big, 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 big,
Hmm.
really big,
Yes, definitely.
huge. And then what else? Anything else on your agenda?
Just clinical research engagement in general, and then the digital links platform has been a huge undertaking for the past few years, and we're really trying to make sure that we are able to pilot test it and show proof of concept, and make it available more widely.
How long do you have to pilot test it before it's available?
Well, I mean, technically it's available now. Somebody could go to digital links right now and use it. What I mean by pilot testing is just that, just kind of the testing to make, it's work out the kinks, and get feedback from people, and incorporate the changes based on people's regular use of the platform. So we're anticipating about a year to work with the clinic. We want to go through 2 cycles of the application, because you have to reapply every 6 months,
Mm.
and then hopefully we'll be able to secure, some licensing agreements with other hospital systems.
Gotcha.
We've been talking to Duke also.
Of course,
So
why not?
hopefully that will
So in
work out.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well. So in the moments that we have left, and just a few, what would you like to leave our audience with?
I would like to leave the audience with the idea that we as community members who are non-scientists, I'm a social scientist, but we as people in the general public have the opportunity to shape the future of our health, for and really trying to shape our access to medication and shape the healthcare system, and to not feel like you have to leave it up to the doctors to do that, but to really be involved and taking control of our health so that we can make sure that the access is more equitable for all people and not just for those who have high income.
Right, right. And coming together is a really important way to do it, and to speak up. I mean, we all have to just speak up, and we can't let people just control everything around us.
Hmm.
It's important for us, and to find that link to someone who
Yeah.
is going to help you speak up
and
sometimes.
and not leave the world the same as we came into it, you
Right,
know.
right. And one thing I was just thinking of, when you were talking before about getting these markers. I mean, if you can isolate those markers and understand the markers in the African American community, that helps in every community. Everything that
Exactly.
we do for each other, we help each other. Period. I don't care
Yes.
what color skin you have or how your eyes are tinted, twisted, or what. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Whatever you find out is good for us all.
It really is.
Right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
It Oh, it's our pleasure.
I
You've been a
enjoyed it.
Thank you. We jumped around to a lot of things, but you're a big lady. You got a lot of things going on. You are big. You're living big,
Thank you. I
right?
appreciate
No,
it.
it's my pleasure. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day. Stay safe, and we love you very much. And if we can do anything for you, be of any service, please let us know. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.